Okay, good evening, everybody, and welcome to the August 4th Lewiston City Council business meeting. I just have a few items to go over real quick before we start. This session will be conducted remotely, and council members will only participate electronically. For those viewing online, please ensure that you join this meeting using the following website address: www.lewistonmaine.gov/2020cc. If you joined using any other link, you may have trouble connecting properly, and we encourage you to log out and then rejoin using the correct address that I just announced. Public comment on any item appearing on the agenda may be sent to publiccomment@lewistonmaine.gov prior to or during the meeting, and all comments received will be forwarded to the City Council. Members of the public who are logged into the meeting online can make a comment when invited to do so using the raise your hand button in the lower center of their screen. Once they are acknowledged, their microphone will be unmuted and they will be invited to make brief comments. Councilors are asked to raise their hands as well to make comments. And for roll call, Madam Clerk, if you could take the attendance.
Sure. Councilor from Ward 1?
Here.
Ward 2?
Here.
Ward 3?
Present.
Ward 4?
Here.
Ward 5?
Present.
Ward 6?
Yep.
Ward 7?
Here.
Thank you. Also present are Mayor Cayer, the Finance Director Heather Hunter, the City Administrator Dennis Doughty, the Deputy City Administrator Dale Doughty, and myself as City Clerk. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. First thing on the agenda is an update on city actions regarding the COVID-19 pandemic, and Dale will provide that info.
Sure. City Hall is continuing to operate as it has since we've opened. We have both monitors at the entrance and exits. If people would like to come to City Hall, they should come to the Park Street entrance. They'll be logged in and directed to their location, and then they would exit on the Pine Street entrance. So that's really the same. Nothing's changed there. We're continuing to work with CCI to close out the Armory, trying to finalize the last bills, assess any damage that's been done, and negotiate those. We had the administrator and I had some discussions on that today. I'll be working with Finance Director as well. And then thirdly, we've submitted the second generation of the Keep Maine Healthy Grant. Heather did that last week. I don't know if there's anything Heather would like to add.
Yes, there was a second round of the Keep Me Healthy Maine grant. We did apply for another a little over $400,000 for round 2. I believe we will hear.
That's it, Mr. Mayor.
All right, thank you.
Mayor,
And yes.
If I could just add, I think we're actually experiencing a little bit here. It's not necessarily COVID-related response, but as everyone is aware, we are experiencing some pretty severe weather. Should we lose complete connectivity, we will obviously pick up any items that we don't complete this evening at our next City Council meeting. But I want before, I'm just seeing people starting already to kind of jumble a bit, and there's some issues already coming through. So I just want to make sure we get that out in the event that we lose everything. And it is possible with the storm.
All right, thank you very much. I'll entertain a motion to accept the minutes of July 21st, 2020.
So move. Second.
Okay, moved by Councilor Clement, I believe, seconded by Councilor Pettingill. Any edits or additions? Councilor Rea?
I just wanted to ask the clerk if the edits via email would be incorporated into those.
Yes, it will. Thank you, Councilor. And I had responded late this afternoon, so you may not have had a chance to read it. It was very late this afternoon. So Councilor Clement pointed out that in the minutes, I still referred to the city administrator as Ed Barrett. So because we use a template for our minutes, and Councilor Rea pointed out that I still had the Pledge of Allegiance in there, which we haven't been doing on Zoom. So again, we use a template and I didn't catch it. So she also provided some clarification regarding the school board report. So we'll make those changes. They're really just housekeeping changes, no substantive changes to the actual minutes. So thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions or concerns about the minutes? Seeing none, call the roll.
Counselor from Ward 1,
Yes.
Ward 2,
Yes.
Ward 3,
Yes.
Ward 4,
Yes.
Ward 5,
Yes.
Ward 6,
Yes.
and Ward 7.
Yes.
Motion passed by a vote of 7-0.
Okay, thank you. This is a public comment period. Any members of the public may make comments regarding issues pertaining to Lewiston City Government. Maximum of 3 minutes per speaker with a maximum time slot of 15 minutes will be allowed. And is there anyone from the public that would like to make a comment? Okay, seeing none. We'll move on. Roll call votes.
All roll call votes for this meeting will begin with the Counselor of Ward 1.
All right, thank you very much. Agenda item number 1.
Item number 1, public hearing for approval of an outdoor entertainment permit for a musical concert in Kennedy Park. Requested action to conduct a public hearing on an application for an outdoor entertainment event in Kennedy Park and to grant a permit for an outdoor entertainment event as required by the City Code of Ordinances, Chapter 10, Article 1, Section 10-3 for an outdoor music concert to be held at Kennedy Park on Saturday, August 22nd, contingent upon positive recommendations from the Police Department, Fire Department, Code, Health Officer, and Land Use Inspector regarding compliance with all regulations and compliance with all city ordinances.
Thank you. I'll entertain a motion.
Mr. Mayor,
Councilor Jensen.
I move to table the approval.
Any reasoning for that?
I didn't get enough information on the form that was provided to us about the organization, and the information that I did look up based on the name provided is not information that I'm comfortable with going forward with this event.
Okay. Is there a second to that motion?
I would second that,
Okay.
but for different reasons. I don't know if you need my reasoning as well.
Moved by Councilor Jensen, seconded by Councilor Rea to table. Discussion. Councilor Rea.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just find that we are still in a pandemic, and moving forward with our government approving outdoor events and gatherings such as this without cleaning protocol included just seems unwise to me. And I do wonder if we might want to amend folks who use the parks in an organized way, especially, the gazebo and other high touch areas. If we might want to add some paperwork or documentation about protocols for cleaning afterwards.
Okay. So Councilor Jensen, I'm going to let you go next, but then I want to give the Deputy City Administrator an opportunity to share his thoughts on the application. Go ahead, Councilor Jensen.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, in the application itself, it just says the name of the organization is Jesus is King, and I couldn't find any information really anywhere about that. It does also say in the form that looks like for-profit and nonprofit are both checked off. It doesn't provide any organization address, doesn't provide any city. So it seems to be lacking a lot of information. My understanding is, if we have these kinds of events, it'd be some organizations that we're aware of, we know what they do, what they stand for. And these decisions should be pretty easy, but there's just not enough information on here for me to approve it. So especially, I did think also during a pandemic, it does seem a little bit silly to have some kind of event like this where there's definitely going to be close contact between people based on the information on the form itself. So that was a big part of my reasoning as well. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. Dale, do you want to add anything?
A couple things, because I think we're going to start getting these. It's starting to pick up a little bit. A couple things, we will be providing them with the CDC governor's guidance and any of the checklists that are appropriate out of DCD. The change from outdoor events of 50 people in aggregate to 100 people in aggregate just occurred last week, and I'm not sure all the guidance has been compiled, but we definitely would be providing them, any applicant that, whether it's on city property or not. We hadn't really contemplated cleaning. We'd really, the way they had depicted, this is their first event, and I think that's why you're seeing a little bit of maybe not so much detail. They had described not selling anything, any food, any materials would be for giveaway only. That doesn't get to whether they're profit or not profit, but it's not a for-profit event. And I think everything else has been pretty much covered in the application that we know today.
Okay, and we have a meeting before the 22nd that they could update their application. Councilor Jensen brings up a very good point. I mean, they put none for address. That's kind of concerning, I think.
Yeah.
Any other questions or comments from councilors? Councilor Clement? You're on mute.
Works until we go into the meeting for some reason or other. There, I think it's off now. The only concern that I would have is whether or not we'd be stepping on the organization's First Amendment rights. And perhaps we ought to address this with the council before we approve or disapprove. I would go along with tabling for that reason, but that reason only. Thank you.
I think, so I would respond that we will have another meeting before the scheduled date, which appears to be August 22nd. So, you know, at this point, I think we're allowing them to add more information to their application. It'll give I think, staff an opportunity to consider the gazebo and how we handle that. But the park is being used pretty regularly right now. You can look out there and there's, you know, a soccer game going on and other games going on. So I think with good protocol from this organization, it probably could be done in a way that the folks might feel comfortable with it. But I think liability-wise, it is important that we cover both Councilor Rea's and Councilor Jensen's concerns. Any other questions or comments? If not, call the roll, please.
And so just for clarification for everyone, so the motion is to table this matter to the next city council meeting. Councilor from Ward 1?
Yes.
Ward 2?
No.
Ward 3?
Yes.
Ward 4?
Yes.
Ward 5?
Yes.
Ward 6?
Yes.
Ward 7?
Yes.
Motion passed by a vote of 6-1.
Okay, thank you. Agenda item number 2.
Item number 2, order consideration of Community Concepts Incorporated appeal of the Finance Committee award of the lead project developer to Clarity Property Services. Requested action to uphold and confirm the Finance Committee's decision to award the lead project developer contract to Clarity Property Services.
Okay, thank you. So at this point, what we'll probably do is have presentations from staff. And then a presentation from Community Concepts representatives. And then at that point, we'll entertain a motion from the council. So can we bring in staff and any Community Concept members that are in the attendees list? Is that it, Dale? Okay. Good evening, everybody, and welcome to the City Council meeting. Just a couple of things I want to go over real quick before we begin. So as we do our presentations here, it's important that we not name individual staff folks from the city. If you have a concern about a process that was followed, it'll be important that you direct that to the department. So if it was an issue that you have through the Economic Development Department or the Finance Department, that's how we should address that. With that said, I think I'm going to turn it over first to our Finance Director, Heather Hunter.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and Council. As you are aware, a bid went out, or an RFP for services went out for the lead project developer. There was a series of responses. There were 3 staff members that made up a score, reviewed all of the responses. They developed a scoring matrix, and through that matrix and the scoring, the recommendation to the Finance Committee was to have Clarity Property Services receive the award and the contract. They were also the lowest bidder, and that staff recommendation was approved by the Finance Committee.
Anyone else presenting on Heather?
I don't, on our opening remarks, Mayor, that's all we have right now. It's just
Okay.
finance.
So I'd like to invite the chair of the Finance Committee, Dennis Terrio, to see if he has anything he'd like to add to that. Dennis, if you'd like to add anything to what the Finance Director just reported, can you raise your hand? All right, if we could bring him in.
Dale, you're muted. Can you bring in Dennis Terrio?
I think I'm
Okay,
doing
yeah.
it right now. Hold on one second.
Okay, sorry, we had internet issues. I stepped out to rectify them.
Okay, is he brought in? I can't see him.
It'll take a second.
Okay.
Also, Mr. Mayor, I believe Dennis is on a telephone, so you may not see his video square, potentially.
He typically shows up this way at the Finance Committee, so I'm sure that's the case.
Can you hear me, Mr. Terrio?
Mr. Mayor, I did get a message that he is on by his telephone number, not on a system. So
Right.
you would not be able to bring him over. He is, if,
Yeah, what are the last 3 digits, Heather, of his number?
050. He's the second attendee listed.
You may want to check in now. I just brought him in to speak.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, can anyone hear me now?
We can, thank you. So you
Thank you,
heard,
Mr. Mayor.
Finance Director Hunter's presentation. Is there anything you'd like to add to that briefly?
No, at this time, there's nothing I want to add. Just want to hear what the Community Concepts has to say.
Okay, thank you. All right, let's put.
Thank you.
Thank you. Let's go ahead and put him back into the attendees. Then we have one additional number showing up before we move on. Dale, do you know who that is? Okay.
Yeah,
thank
they
you.
should all be back now.
All right, thank you. So Ms. Albert and Ms. Reinhardt, thank you again for attending. Which one of you would like to present first?
I'd like to present first, Mr. Mayor. Thank you for having us. Council members, thank you for the opportunity to speak with you this evening. My name is Mary Rita Reinhardt. I'm the Chief Operating Officer at Community Concepts, and I am the Acting Chief Executive Officer. Today, I'm here to ask for a review of the assessment and scoring of the responses to bid number 2020-12 for the lead project developer RFP and a reconsideration of the RFP award based on some inconsistencies in the scoring. To provide a little context, Community Concepts has been a nonprofit community action agency in Lewiston for well over 50 years. We pay approximately $170,000 in property taxes. Although we are exempt from that, we recognize the value of the relationship and being good community partners. We have a long-standing history with the City of Lewiston with our partnerships. In terms of the scoring process, the scoring appeared to be inconsistent with the documented process when we reviewed the 2017 RFP and compared it to the most recent, despite an expanded financial category. In terms of the professional qualifications, resume, and technical competence, CCI experienced a 12% reduction in point allocation despite over 20 years of experience and having met all HUD benchmark requirements for over 20 years. Our competitor realized a 470% increase in points awarded with a note of reasonable amount of relevant experience, 5 years. And also of noteworthy proportion is that the staff resumes were not included in the RFP package. I move on to capacity to complete the project scope of service and demonstrated experience and references. Community Concepts experienced a 15.7% reduction in the point allocation due to our expanded footprint, with speculation that we may confuse contract requirements and struggle with prioritization. I share with you that Community Concepts has 6 licensed risk assessors and designers and well over 20 years of experience. In just the last 12 months, we've completed over 400 risk assessments. Our competitors realized a 357% increase in points allocation, with no staff changes noted in the materials submitted in the RFP and a notation that they would hire to meet capacity. It is our understanding that they have 2 licensed risk assessors in place. We believe strongly that our overall scoring was negatively impacted by alleged performance defects that were either never brought to our attention or a minor infraction which never rose to the level requiring such a reduction in points. We respectfully request that this be referred back to the Finance Committee to review the scoring and with the opportunity for both proposers under consideration present. We were not notified of the recommendation prior to its presentation to the Finance Committee, nor were we provided a notice of that meeting. As a result, we did not have a chance to present our concerns before the action was taken. Thank you very much for your time and consideration.
Okay, thank you very much. And is that it for your presentation? Is there any other comments?
There's no further comments. Sandy is waiting in the wings in case there's some subject matter expertise information that she can lend her expertise to.
Okay. Is there any response from staff? Mr. Jeffers?
Yeah, I saw sort of the appeal documents that came forward, sort of detailing it. And at first I was a little confused because I was trying to think, I just scored this. I wasn't recognizing the comments. And I realized they were actually looking back to the 2017 grant, which I think the award was done in 2018. I think it's important to note that what was put out to bid at that time is an entirely different contract than what was put out to bid this time. CCI was the successful bidder on the 2018 RFP. That particular contract had 11 items on it. This contract has 3 items on it. I'll try to quickly cover the ground, but under the CCI, what was awarded in 2018, it was doing intake on the grants, it was doing an assessment of the units, it was writing the scope of work, it was putting the project out to bid, it was conducting walkthroughs, it was awarding the contract, it was relocating tenants who were living in the units that were going to have work done on them. There was inspections that would have to occur during construction. CCI would be processing payment requests and change orders. They would be testing units for clearance, and then they were providing documentation to owners after the construction was completed. Clarity did not score as well at that round. And so comparing the scoring then compared to the scoring now, which this RFP has 3 items. Do an assessment of the unit, see if what's lead is there, write a scope of work, and attend the pre-bid walkthrough. So you've got 3 items versus 11 items. So very, very different. The city is going to be running the bid process in this and awarding the bids. So again, that's taken out of it. The documents, it was not touched upon in community concepts just now, but they made great, in several instances, talked about the conflict of interest that existed in 2018, and it very much existed in 2018. One of the owners, or a relation to the owners of the company, is one of our primary lead contractors. The conflict of interest was very real then. At this point, that does not exist because several times it was referenced that there was a conflict of interest if you're doing clearance. So there's no clearance. This is not the contract that's being awarded. Clearance is testing after the work has been done to make sure the lead's been cleaned up. That contract has actually been awarded to Community Concepts, and they've done a great job on that side of it. Another issue as far as conflict of interest, just to cover the ground since it was brought up and the council's read it, is that Kevin Booten, who has been one of our primary contractors for this work, is likely getting out of the abatement business. So I think the conflict of interest is quickly diminishing as a concern. The fact that they're not doing clearance testing, I think makes it that much smaller. As far as CCI, feeling that their scoring was related to their expanded footprint, not being able to hit it. That was a piece of it, but it really wasn't the biggest piece of it. There has been concerns expressed over the course of the current grant that we're doing that they just weren't quite hitting the mark, and they missed the items. I think in their appeal, they had sort of referenced it as a couple of paperwork snafus. And out of all the units we've done, we've had a couple of stumbles, and that shouldn't count against us. The reality is that city staff on 48 different occasions has said, here's what we need, please provide it. And it was not, there was really no additional action ever taken. There was no timeliness on support of it. The email, not the email, but their appeal sort of referenced something I had said, that it was a very simple solution, that instead of providing us hard copies of the documents, send them to us as PDFs. That was portrayed as a simple fix. Well, that simple fix had been suggested, not in a formal way, but just had been suggested in the past, and was told, we can't do it, we don't have the capacity to do it, that doesn't make sense. So I thought that was a little bit off to sort of suggest that there's a simple fix because it was recommended, there was no action taken on it. It's for those type reasons that they were reduced. I mean, they've done a pretty good job, but they really have not been perfect. There are various standards that we asked them to meet. One was, and it's part of the HUD requirements, is that you need to evaluate the substrate condition when you're doing a lead test. Not to only check, is there lead in that paint, but you also need to check what the condition of the surface is beneath it. Is it metal? Is it rusted metal? Is it wood? Is it rotten wood? Is it drywall? Is it plaster? Those are the things, and what's the condition of it? Because the condition of the substrate could have an impact on what conditions need to be done to fix it. That was mentioned many, many, many times, and there was never an action taken to remedy it. For those reasons, they didn't score as well as they had in the past. It was not coming down to simply they had a larger footprint. I want to say CCI has been a very good dance partner. We've done a lot of good work together. We've got a lot of good work to do together in front of us. I feel it's unfortunate that they had appealed this, because I do think it was a very fair process. Excuse me, I've got noise in my ear. I thought the wind was going to be singing at my back. Reality is, to sort of cut to the chase, I've got more things, but I really don't need to keep hammering on it. I think a very fair process was put forth. At the end of the day, the city Finance Committee is charged with awarding contracts to the lowest responsible bidder. This proposal from Clarity was $31,000 less across the board. There were, it was actually, if you just focus on the lead grant portion of this, it was actually a $39,000 difference between what Clarity bid and what CCI bid. And we, as staff, determined that Clarity is a responsible bidder. They will be able to get this work done. You know, they do not have the experience that CCI has had, and we're not saying that CCI is not capable. We are partnering with them on the other half of this grant. But out of those 11 items on the front side, Clarity has been awarded 3 of them. I did not count up exactly what's included in the portion that Community Concepts was awarded, because some of it the city will be doing internally. Specifically, the bidding process is out of the original grant. With the new grant now, the bidding process is going to be handled by the city and the Finance Committee awarding it. I think what we have done was appropriate and open for any questions.
All right, thank you. Ms. Reinhardt, anything you'd like to add, respond to quickly?
I think the comments that Lincoln made, I concur with the relationship with the city, and it troubled us immensely to have to come forward with this. But we pride ourselves on the work that we do, and we feel strongly that there's a reputational risk to our organization. And you know, we could go back and forth on case after case, and I don't think that that's a good use of any of our time on this call tonight, and would welcome the opportunity for further discussion with the group at the Finance Committee to reevaluate. We feel strongly in our position.
Okay, thank you. I'll open it up to the council for any questions or comments. Councilor Rea.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I was just hoping someone could help me understand. So, Link, it sounds like you and some other staff were involved in a scoring process. However, it's the Finance Committee's duty to award a bid to the lowest responsible bidder. Can you explain how those two processes interact with each other?
I can do that. Heather, is that something you want to take on, or would you like me to? Heather's disappeared, so I guess I'll take it on.
Oh, she's coming on right now.
No, it's okay. I just had to unmute. In this particular instance with the RFP, the staff was selected to review the responses and came up with the metrics to score them. That is presented to the Finance Committee, similar to other, if it was a municipal garage truck, the municipal garage department would go through the same exercise, make a recommendation to the Finance Committee.
Okay, thank you.
With all other things being typically the Finance Committee.
Okay, so Heather, you're freezing up on us. We only caught about half of that. Link, is there anything you want to add?
Yeah, to be honest, I have had limited experience with awards. It's usually been on consultants. So it's sort of standard for me is when you've got more complex, it's not, you're simply buying a car, here's the specs, and it's that simple. Every Finance Committee award that I've been involved with has entailed really evaluating what the capacity is of the various people bidding on it is a component of it, and then it always goes to the low bidder of those that have been determined to be responsible bidders with the capacity to do the work. So this is consistent with every iteration I've had, my interactions with the Finance Committee. So I think that covers it.
Okay.
Could I ask a follow-up question?
Please.
Just to clarify so that I'm getting this right. So the staff review process happened and assessed who could move forward with a sealed number bid or no?
Actually, yeah, it is not it was not a sealed bid. Some contracts are awarded that way, where you only open the awards from those who was low bidder, and if it works, it's good. This one, it was an open process. We both knew the price and the capacity, but the scoring happens in an open process. And it is staff, folks who have some expertise, some knowledge of the work to be done, evaluate the entities that are bidding. We had 4 bidders. 2 of them that didn't score well, largely because they had much higher project costs, and to a degree some limited staff capacity. They were environmental engineers, and that's what they do. They had less experience on the writing scope of services, which is really a spot where Community Concepts has got pretty good experience, as does, we believe, Clarity. So
Okay, thank you so much.
Yep.
Are there any other questions from councils? So I'd like to take just a moment, and I know I can speak for most of the council. Community Concepts has been a great partner to the city for many, many years. No matter what the results of tonight's action is, I don't see that partnership being damaged. And, I want our community to know that they have done an outstanding job over the years in many aspects and different areas. And most recently, coming to the plate when the city needed someone to run a wellness shelter, which wasn't in their expertise field, but boy, did they learn quickly, and they did an excellent job. So I just think, I know the city administration, our economic development department, and our finance director would most probably agree with that statement. So I'm not seeing any other questions or comments. I'll entertain a motion from the council.
So moved.
Okay, it's moved by Councilor Joy. Do I, I need to know what you're moving, the recommendation?
The recommendation.
Okay.
That's correct.
All right, do I have a second?
I'll second, Mr. Mayor.
All right, thank you. And did you have a question or comment, Councilor Clement?
Just briefly, I've heard the presentation here tonight. I've heard Mr. Jeffers speak as a member of the Finance Committee. I can tell the council that we went through this the same as any other process. We look upon staff and their expertise to give a recommendation, and there was no indication anywhere in this presentation there was anything that was not open and above board. And it comes down to the Finance Committee. In the end, we are charged with awarding a bid to the lowest responsive bidder. And I do believe that's what happened in this case. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And I just want to clarify the motions to uphold and confirm the Finance Committee's decision to award the lead project developer contract to Clarity Property Services. Any other questions or comments from the council?
Mr. Mayor,
Councilor Pengill?
can you just read the motion again? My internet appears to be cutting out every time it's read.
Yeah, absolutely. Madam Clerk, can you grab that for me?
Sure. So the motion printed in the book is to uphold and confirm the Finance Committee's decision to award the lead project developer contract to Clarity Property Services. And I think if I could, Mr. Mayor, we should maybe just add to the end of it and to adopt the order that accompanies this. That motion really doesn't tie back to the adopting the order, but I think the intention of staff is for the council to be adopting the order, which is on the next page. So even though the motion doesn't clearly state that, I think that is the intention. So again, I think the motion would be printed in your book to uphold and confirm the Finance Committee's decision to award the lead project developer contract to Clarity Property Services and to approve the related order.
Okay, thank you. And that order's been provided to everybody?
It has, yes. It's on the very back page of the cover sheet. We double-sided this agenda material because it's so large.
Okay. And Mary's shaking her head. You haven't seen that?
Yeah, I don't know what material was provided to the appellant. All of the materials on the city's website.
Okay.
I have that, thank you.
You have seen it? Okay, thank you. All right, Councilor Pattengill, did you get that?
I did, thank you.
Thank you. Any other, Councilor Rea?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This was a very detailed process, and I appreciate staff's all the information that was provided to us. I know Community Concepts much better than the company that we're awarding the bid to. So I know that they're doing this in good faith because they do want to keep holding their great standing with the city. But I trust that staff did this process fairly and equitably, and that the Finance Committee did as well. So it looks like lots of points of feedback were shared during this process too. And so I hope that makes every person who's applying better for a future bid.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions or comments from councilors? Seeing none, call the roll.
Counselor from Ward 1,
Yes.
Ward 2,
Yes.
Ward 3,
Yes.
Ward 4,
Yes.
Ward 5,
Yes.
Ward 6,
Yes.
and Ward 7.
Yes.
Motion passed by a vote of 7-0.
Okay, thank you. Mary and Sandy, thank you. Staff, thank you very much. Agenda item number 3, please.
Item number 3, authorization to accept transfer of forfeiture funds. Requested action that pursuant to Title 15, Maine Revised Statutes Annotated, Section 5824(3) and Section 5822(4)A, the City Council hereby acknowledges and approves of the transfer of $1,153 or any portion thereof in the case of the State of Maine versus Devin Leonard, CR 20-196 court records, being funds forfeited pursuant to the court process. It is further acknowledged that these funds shall be credited to the City of Lewiston Drug Enforcement Program account.
So moved, Mr. Mayor.
Second, someplace?
Second.
Second.
Okay, moved by Councilor Clement, seconded by Councilor Pettingill. The chief's been brought in should we have any questions, but these are pretty standard. Are there any questions or comments from the council? Seeing none, call the roll.
Council from Ward 1,
Yes.
Ward 2,
Yes.
Ward 3,
Yes.
Ward 4,
Yes.
Ward 5,
Yes.
Ward 6,
Yes.
and Ward 7.
Yes.
Motion passed by a vote of 7-0.
Okay, thank you, Chief. Okay, agenda item number 4, please.
Item number 4, presentation regarding part 2 of the Design Lewiston project. And the requested action is simply to receive the presentation and no action or motion is required at this time.
Okay, thank you. Good evening, David and Doug.
Okay.
Good evening. I'm going to let Doug run the show here, and I'll be here for backup and support if and when necessary.
All right.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, partner. Okay, yeah, tonight, Dave and I are happy to be presenting the second part of the Design Lewiston project. Back on July 14th, the staff presented the first part, which included going over the Design Lewiston, the site plan review and design guidelines and standards, along with the text amendment that would regulate and make that happen. So while we were working on those provisions, the staff was looking for opportunities to clean up, clarify, simplify, and any way possible make the zoning ordinance easier to understand and comply with. And so tonight, we're going to be presenting just a summary of the benefits we feel like that these text amendments that are in your packet. We don't want to go into the details of all those text amendments. They're frankly mind-numbing, but we did want to just go over in a summary fashion what we think that these changes will provide in a general sense. So number 1 in the list of benefits is creating incentives and flexibility that supports infill development, which is one of the goals of the Design Lewiston project. And that is happening by reducing the lot frontage and lot size requirements in the downtown residential and riverfront zoning districts and thereby providing more opportunity to build on currently undevelopable lots. That we're looking to reduce the lot density requirement for mixed-use structures in the community business district that's going up and down Pine Street in the Tree Street area. That would be, we're looking to do a rezoning in the Tree Street area for the community business district, rezoning it to downtown residential. And again, part of that would be doing better work on the lot density requirement for mixed-use structures. And I'll get into that a little bit more later on. To reestablish and allow modifications to development requests for non-dimensional space and bulk standards, now defined to include yards, impervious surface ratio, open space ratios, and building height. Just briefly, I'll just mention that a legal opinion back in 2017 really stopped the planning board and staff from doing modifications to setbacks and things like that. We've gone back and looked carefully at how we can modify certain things, not dimensional requirements, but things like I mentioned, yards and impervious surface ratio, open space, and things like that. We're going to be looking to allow neighborhood retail in the Tree Street area. Right now, it's allowed for general retail, and we think neighborhood retail is a much better fit for that neighborhood. And also we'll be reducing the parking requirement for these small neighborhood businesses that would facilitate existing neighborhood businesses that are struggling sometimes with parking requirements, and that would incentivize and maybe allow more small businesses to come into the downtown residential areas of the Tree Street neighborhood. We're also looking to allow structures that are currently non-conforming with respects to setbacks to be able to expand along their existing building line if they're not extending further into the required setback. Right now, you can't expand a non-conforming building surface in any way possible. So this is another little way to give flexibility to businesses and structures that might want to expand that are right now prevented from doing that. The second general benefit is to support the implementation and administration of these citywide guidelines and the development district standards. And some of these text amendments will be requiring the new development in the design district to adhere to the design district overlay standards. And then we're also going to be requiring developers citywide to consider and reference the new site plan review and design guidelines in their applications. We've had the site plan review and design guidelines on the books for 30 years, but they've been seldom used. And we just want to make sure that developers and their applications at least are looking at these guidelines and recommendations and let us know if they're going to use them, and if not, why they're not going to use them, but it's not a requirement. Number 3 is promoting quality development. And we're going to be requiring new development in the design district overlays, which is the downtown residential, riverfront, mill, and Centreville, to follow simple design standards and then also be compatible to the surrounding neighborhood. And that's the real focus of the standards that will be applied in those 4 downtown zoning districts. One of the things that we are looking for to promote quality development citywide is to require landscaping on new commercial developments that are located along street frontages. And that has been a consensus from the planning board and the advisory committee that helped put together this Design Lewiston program and project, that they really wanted to see better landscaping and some beautifications along our commercial corridors for new development. Number 4 is to reorganize and clarify portions of the zoning ordinance that are currently confusing. And that's an understatement, I guess, when you think about zoning. In particular, the administration and enforcement article of the zoning ordinance has now been regrouped by topics, as opposed to being kind of a random hodgepodge of all different kinds of assorted regulations that are very difficult to know what's where. And so this is going to help anybody who is needing to work with this part of the ordinance to know what's being regulated by topics. And then also we've reorganized the appeal section of the zoning ordinance, which was also very confusing in the past. And hopefully this is going to help out in some small way, helping people understand how to deal with variances and modifications. And then lastly, we've looked for ways to streamline the development review application process and the application itself. And we've been looking to clarify in the ordinance what's the requirements for applications. And then we're also putting together new online applications that will help anybody wanting to submit development applications to better find the resources and information on what's required on their applications. There's going to be mapping links and links to the zoning ordinances that will help guide them through this application process. And in general, better directions on summarizing what's expected and timelines for helping people get through the development review process. So in summary, the Design Lewiston Advisory Committee, the Planning Board, our consultants, Stantec, and the staff throughout this whole process have been working on ways to look to strike a balance between creating better quality development at the same time avoiding expensive development requirements for developers. And we've really worked hard to try to meet that and keep it simple but effective. And we're glad to be able to present this tonight to you. We're certainly open to discuss anything that you might have seen in the voluminous packet that you received. On top of the summary of what I just discussed, there's also a summary of the summary, which really specifies everything that was proposed to be changed in these text amendments, article by article. And we put in there page numbers that you can refer to if you had chosen to do that before you go to sleep. That would be a way to, you could look specifically at every text amendment that has been proposed. The last thing I also wanted to touch base on is that I mentioned it briefly, but I want to just touch base again that we are proposing, the planning board is going to be looking at a public hearing on August 24th, all these text amendments and including the zone change for the Tree Street area. And that was in your packet. So in areas right now that are currently zoned Neighborhood Conservation B and Community Business, which is along Pine Street, would be proposed to be rezoned to all downtown residential, which would unify the entire neighborhood. We think that's going to be a good thing for businesses and for new infill development. That'll standardize how new development would be appearing and again, be compatible to the surrounding development. Also at that August 24th meeting, we're looking for the planning board to adopt the site plan review and design guidelines. So that would be put to rest and be ready to start being activated for new development. And that's the briefest summary I can think of as a way to get to the heart and the benefits of what all this is about. And I hope it encourages you to look forward to where we're going in Lewiston for new development happening in a quality way, but in a respectful and not expensive way, hopefully. But I'd be glad to answer any questions you have.
Thank you. Councilor Pettingill.
Why, thank you, as if you didn't know I wanted to talk about this. I just wanted to say that I appreciate everybody's time in this. The amount of time that everybody's put into this to clean it up, have a vision for our development and where it goes forward, and to make a difficult process easier for developers and citizens who may have questions or are looking to do things, because it can be quite onerous. So thank you for the time taken to do that and move this forward. This is something that's been in the pipeline for quite a while, waiting to move forward. So thank you very much from the bottom of my heart. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Pettingill. Councilor Clement.
There we go with the button again. Okay, I really don't have much to say. I think Councilor Pettingill covered just about everything. I appreciate this, and I just want to reiterate that anything we can do to make the development process smoother and easier for those wishing to come to Lewiston and partner with us is what we want to do. And I think we as a council have pretty much agreed on that since the start of the year. And I hope we continue to move forward in that direction. I thank you very much.
Thank you. I have a couple of quick questions. So if a big box store or a developer wants to build that type of building, a big box store, I notice in other towns, a lot of times there's character added to those buildings, but in our area, because I would assume of lack of some standards, that's not a requirement. Would this protect the community from that type of big box look?
Well, specifically the design standards, which are going to be the ones that must be adhered to, are going to be in place in our downtown core area. And there may not be the parcels and size of properties that would support a big box development. I think what we would be looking for other areas of town where a big box might come in would be better landscaping along the street. I think we would want to, the planning board has become much better educated on design principles and some basic things that I think they could be encouraging developers to look for. But I think that was one of the trade-offs that the entire process wound up with, was to not have overly stringent regulations everywhere and don't have strict design guidelines in the other parts of the city. If these wind up being popular and very supportive and a good thing, then it's always worth looking at expanding the areas of design standards to other parts. In particular, during the process, it was talked about expanding design regulations out our commercial corridors, and that always would be another frontier to look into. But for right now, big boxes would be allowed to move forward. The feasibility of those are always in question right now, given the status of retail, but that's another story.
No, I agree. But there are other type businesses, warehouses, or anything that could, be built. And I understand in an industrial park,
right.
I'm okay with a box looking place in an industrial park, but just outside of our downtown area, I wouldn't be as comfortable with that. And then the landscaping costs concern me a little bit. Cost in general, are we going to be able to kind of keep an eye on development costs that have to follow these standards? We truly probably wouldn't have an understanding of how much it's affecting developers, would we?
I don't think that's, right now I know that we don't track development costs. We hear occasionally anecdotal information about the cost of development. And occasionally you'll get a developer who squawks at, requirements that, oh, you're going to run me out and this is going to kill the project. We think these are reasonable requests. It's a balancing act, again, of supporting good quality developments that's going to help the appearance of our community, which we think is a good thing. And the landscaping, I still think it's a good idea. The committees have supported that. And if you drive up and down our corridors in areas that don't have landscaping, it's a harsh and not an inviting type of setting. So I think how we could track the cost of those things, I guess we could have some discussions with developers as we move into these projects and see what the impacts are.
If I can, Mr. Mayor, I think a bigger issue is really uncertainty. What we hear from consultants, applicants is more often than not, they just want to know what the rules are. They don't like surprises brought on by staff. They don't like surprises brought on by the planning board. So while additional costs are never welcomed, if they know what those are going into it, they're more accepting of it. But when things come up at the last minute, when there's a negotiation occurring at a planning board level, that's when they haven't taken those things into consideration, and that impacts their bottom line at some point. So if we can do a better job of eliminating that, and we don't have a lot of that now with these design standards, there will be certainly more conversation going into it. So there'll be more work on staff's part to have those conversations up front. But we already do that now in an effort to get a project approved in one meeting with the planning board. So I think Doug's right. We'll have to monitor this because this is new territory for us as well. So we'll figure out what works and what doesn't.
I struggled with some of this originally, but I truly do believe this is a good move for our community. But what we can't forget is that back in 2019, we had 1.2% new growth in our community, which isn't sustainable. I mean, with that type of new growth. So although we want better standards, we also want to make sure developers are building in our community as well. And I think this can work. But when a developer comes in and complains about it, I think at that point we shift to a customer service to try to get them to understand how this will benefit development citywide, which hopefully will help them, make some money off their development. So I don't think we can ever forget that. Any other, and thank you very much, Doug and Dave. I think you guys did a great job on this presentation. Any other questions or comments from the council? Okay, and there's no action required. So we'll move to agenda item number 5.
Thank you.
Item number 5 is reports and updates.
Councilor Rea.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And Madam Clerk, I will send you this information because I'm about to throw a lot of dates out. So for school committee, we met on July 27th. Some focuses of of that meeting included receiving the reopening draft, which proposed a couple different scenarios for us. We also heard from the B Street Clinic about COVID testing that's happening there. So that is a resource for our students and educators. We also heard about our needs assessment, which is a rigorous process that we go through in order to qualify for federal funding for Title I, II, III, and IV. I think I'm not forgetting any, but I probably am. Also on July 30th, Superintendent Langlis held a community forum on the reopening draft. We met on August 3rd last night to discuss a personal matter, and we have a meeting on Monday, August 10th, which would be our discussion and vote on reopening. We're getting some public comment already on the reopening draft, which would include a hybrid model currently, but it's up for discussion on the 10th. So if folks are reaching out to you all, feel free to send them on to the school committee. And then on the county budget committee, the first commissioners meeting is on August 12th. So next Wednesday, the county commissioners receive their budget, review it with department heads over the next couple weeks, and then it gets turned over to the county budget committee for our review. So just wanted to keep you all apprised that that process is starting up.
Okay, thank you. Any other reports or updates from councilors? Okay, seeing none. Councilor Jelinas. I couldn't tell if which hand was. Thank you, go ahead.
I just had a couple follow-up questions for Councilor Rea.
Go ahead.
Wondering, I was out of town and unable to attend, wondering how well attended the community forum was.
I also was unable to be there due to a work obligation, so I'm not quite sure, but I assume we'll get a report back when the superintendent is able to. I can reach out to them tonight and relay that to you if that'd be helpful.
The second question I had, Councilor Rea, is in response to the comment that you made about B Street providing the school committee with information around testing for our community educators and students, and wondering if you could offer specific information about that regarding turnaround time for results.
Yeah, so what I heard, and that the doctor who presented is more well-versed than I am in this, but they do have rapid tests there, but they're not utilizing them as much. So there's rapid tests, which I believe are 15 to 30 minutes. And then they are also sending out to the state lab, which is about 3 days turnaround time. And they're utilizing that more. I can't remember the reason. All of that is filmed on the school committee's YouTube page. So you can check back there as well.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Final call for reports and updates. Okay, agenda item number 6.
Item number 6, any other city business councilors or others may have relating to Lewiston City Government.
I think this has probably been one of our quickest meetings. All right, so seeing nothing further on that agenda item, I'll entertain a motion.
Mr. Mayor, I move we adjourn.
I'll second the motion, Mr. Mayor.
Moved by Councilor Clement, seconded by Councilor Joy. Call the roll.
Councilor from Ward 1,
Yes.
Ward 2,
Yes.
Ward 3,
Yes.
Ward 4,
Yes.
Ward 5,
Yes.
Ward 6,
Yes.
and Ward 7.
Yes.
Motion passed by a vote of 7-0.
Thank you all very much.